Welcome to Santos on Sports. A lot going on in the world of sports, especially with that Patriots scrimmage last night, or actually a game against Carolina. What'd you all think about that? That's where we're going to start today. Chris Santos and Paul Santos, happy to have you looking in. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River, Citywide Glass. 3 locations, Dartmouth, Fall River in Taunton, Lakeford Athletic Club in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street, New Bedford, and you can check out his website at johnseedlaw.com. Okay, so a Patriots game last night. First chance to see Mac Jones. I'm kind of watching that game last night, and I'm thinking at the end of the game, I enjoyed watching it. I'm looking at the different things that happened. The defense seemed to look quicker. The offense, first couple of series, not so good, but then the third one kind of got things going. But then in the end, a lot of subs in there. I don't know, Chris, could you really tell a lot from that? I'm not sure that, you can really tell a lot from that. I mean, the fans, we like to look at it and break everything down, but, I don't know. I'm hoping that they improve from last year, but again, it's still too early to tell.
It is, but it's a start where the Patriots, for what me and you have been talking about, Paul, is to what to look for ahead. And obviously, you have said it in the past about this defense that you do not like. And so that was one of the things that I was looking for, and I hope you were too. And to me, it started with the speed of the linebackers. Now, I know you're only playing Carolina. It's a preseason. But you try to get an idea for that speed to see if they're able to handle tight ends, handle slot receivers, things like that. So that was kind of a big one to see. And I even put down some names like McGrone, McMillan, Wilson Sr., some guys there in the linebacker core that were able to boast up that speed, which we thought was a weakness last year, and it was exploited. And then if you add in like Duggar, Phillips, McCourty, obviously Peppers will get a chance to get in there. And then you add some of those other guys in the secondary to see with their speed and what they look like. So I think on defensive wise, that was some of the high priority that the Patriots were looking at. Never mind, you want to get to the quarterback. So Judon, Bondmore, Wise, some of those guys, Jennings, a few of those guys to see what they could do, because the defense was very poor last year in some ways. And even as expert analysis last week said, they were still like a top 10, top 15 defense. So they're trying to find a way to quicken up that speed. Thought I saw a little bit of it last night. Now, on the opposite end, you're talking Mac Jones. He said after the game it was a rocky start. Okay, I get it. You're doing your practices. Now you're getting some live action. First 2 possessions, 0 for 3, got sacked once, 3 and out both times. And they settled down. They went, he went 4 for 5 for like 60 yards, ended up getting a touchdown on an 81-yard drive. So that was good. You check on the zone blocking, which they're really installing this year. You can look at the RPO schemes that they're installing this year. So they're building their time. They're trying to find both offense and defense, what's working for them. And then you kind of pick it up, pick it apart. The young kid, Strange, the offensive lineman, played a lot last night. Try to take a good look at him, see how he's holding up with a lot of reps and how he's handling, obviously, real live action instead of, not preseason, but training camp things. So it was nice to see him get involved as well. So I think Bill learned a lot last night and what he's seeing from this team.
Well, you mentioned that defense. That is absolutely true. I did notice a little more speed on the defense,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a big point of criticism last year, that in order to have a modern, football defense, the things have changed a little bit over the years. It used to be these big, heavy guys, stuffing you and things like that, which you still need to do, especially on the down lineman. But at the linebacker position, you really do need speed, and you need to get a pass rush on the quarterback. That was a big problem when they were playing Buffalo. They just couldn't take down the quarterback, Josh Allen, no matter what. They just couldn't get to him. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy to get to him. Again, last night, Carolina not playing the starters so much, not even a quarterback or whatever, but still, just you can still see speed, when you see it and you're looking at it and you're saying, they do look a lot faster. So maybe there has been a little change in plan there. Maybe Belichick is looking at it like, okay, I've been around a long time. I'm kind of set my ways, but I do want to evolve with the game, and we're definitely going to need some speed to compete, especially in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. And the other one was who could replace maybe James White. So I thought Ty Montgomery kind of stepped up last night. Now I don't know if he's in the mix, but it's a name that's out there to be a third down back and also line up in the slot. So kind of that hybrid, which is the new kind of scheme in the NFL, and we've seen it from a few different teams like Deebo Samuel, Cordell Patterson, Tyreek Hill. Now, I'm not saying Ty Montgomery is that, but I'm seeing where maybe the Patriots are kind of using some of those schemes into their offense. So it'll be interesting to see with White not there, who kind of gets involved. And now they got a lot of running backs, and it happened to be Montgomery last night. So let's see if he holds true as a veteran, or they get maybe some of the younger kids in there as well and doing the same thing. So I'll be curious to see how they do that once the season starts.
And a shout out to Philip McDonald. Thanks for looking in this morning. If you'd like to jump into the discussion, you see the phone number there. You know it. It's 774-762-6234. Yep. What did you think of the New England Patriots yesterday? I mean, are they coming along? One of the things that came up in the postgame at Belichick, boy, he just had a smirk on his face during that postgame, a little bit different than we ordinarily see him. When they continued to ask him about, well, Patricia was calling the plays on the offense. Was he, basically doing the job of the offensive coordinator? He was kind of, well, it's a progress. Yeah, but he was the guy that was calling plays, right? Yeah, he was communicating with the quarterback. Yeah, he was communicating with the quarterback, just kind of smiling and smirking. And so, it's funny because the fans and the media really want to understand his thought process, but he's not letting us know exactly what the thought process is. He's kind of like, kind of keeping a close to the vest kind of thing here. So it's just kind of funny watching this whole, cat and mouse game between the media and the coach.
Yeah, well, that's Bill, and Bill does it his way. And when he's ready to release and come out with the proper role for each guy, then he'll come out and say it. And as Karen said last week, Detroit and the Giants still paying those two guys. And, when that maybe settles down a little bit more, maybe Bill will come out and say, all right, well, this is now them in New England, and this is their role here in New England. So Mac Jones, also reading up this morning, talked about, how he's handling working with Matt. Very well respected veteran coach. They really like him. And so if he's having a good repertoire with one another between Mac and Patricia, you can't go wrong with that. If obviously it wasn't working well, then they would know about it and then probably move on to something else. But it seems right now the two are getting along. And it showed last night that Patricia was the guy. And so at least for that game, that's where they stand. Obviously, we thought the highlights more than anything else this week, Paul, was, the training camp where Carolina came in and all the media would talk about was the undisciplined New England Patriots, the undisciplined Carolina Panthers. And they had some on-field skirmishes between some players. And, when you're having drills like 7-on-7 and, and then you kind of add it in, obviously those are not really like to maybe belt somebody. If you have an opportunity to really line them up, it's kind of bump them off and then you let him go and he takes off. So there might have been some extra hits there that some players didn't like on both sides, but I wouldn't say it was specifically, oh, that's just Carolina undisciplined. I think it's a little bit of a two-way take. So, maybe uncharacteristic of the Patriots, but at the same time, they're trying to show some identity to say, hey, we're faster, we're getting there, and, we're coming back with vengeance. So it is what it is. I know the media took it really out of proportion in some ways, but again, I understand. Remember, you have fans watching. You got young kids there. Is that the right role model? Is that the way it should be? These kids look up to you. Can that not happen on the field? All that kind of stuff. And that was like the big talk of the week. So, you put it all together and then you finally play the game. Looked like it was more controlled last night with the 11-on-11. But, that's football. And then sometimes you're going to have those altercations. It's just how you handle them and move on from there.
You think that Bill secretly likes the fact that they got into those altercations? There is some school of thought that thinks, well, Bill wants them to go out there and maybe stir the pot a little bit and maybe try to reach down deep into something that they weren't able to do before.
I would probably have to say, what really happened. I don't really know all the details of who did what and why. But if it's to protect one of your players, if it's protect your team, yeah, I have a little hype in that. I have no problem. Don't let anybody crap on you. Make sure you stand up for yourself and, you 11 guys show your identity. I have no problem with that. And sometimes you see the altercations between teammates, offensive line trying to make his name and get on the team. And he goes up against a veteran D and maybe does a little something that the veteran didn't like. And they kind of go at it. So, yeah, everyone's out there for themselves as well to try to make this team and try to show that they belong. But at the same time, between those two teams, it's to say, hey, you're not going to run all over us. We're going to find a way to stay up for ourselves. And I think that's what that was about during the week.
As you know, Chris, a lot of the fans have been saying things like, well, they get these two guys, Patricia and Judge. They're failed head coaches. Bill brought them in. He's probably trying to save money. They really need a better offensive coordinator than that. They're dumbing the things down and all this kind of stuff. Let me ask you this, right? Do you think that the fans and perhaps the media have gone a little overboard on this? Because obviously the offensive coordinator is a very important position. That's the person that's going to call the play. But you call the play, you may call a very good play. They still have to execute the play. That's the first thing. So you can call a play if for whatever reason the players don't execute the play, the players don't execute the play. Then secondly, you call the play, and at least a chunk of the time, the quarterback is going to change the play at the line of scrimmage anyway. So are we overdoing, the idea that, well, this guy's calling it and that guy's calling it? You know what I mean? Obviously, Josh McDaniels was very good at it, but, he wasn't perfect either. So what do you think about that? Are the fans and the media overdoing that?
We will know week one. That's for sure. Because if it doesn't go the way that the Patriot fans or the media likes it, shows will be blown up and saying, what's going on with this offense? This looks pathetic and terrible. And a lot of the fans will not like it. I think it's too early to tell. Again, you're trying to compare maybe Patricia to McDaniels. I don't know if I can do that, right now, depending on what I see once they come out week one. I'm not going to just tell that by, one scrimmage, two scrimmages, and guys who are not on the field, the starting 11, the entire game. So kind of early to tell, but at the same time, the fans want to have a definite answer. And sometimes when Bill doesn't give it, they look for something to chomp on. And I think that's what they're doing right now. And again, as you said, it's two coaches who are probably very good, Paul. Don't get me wrong, coordinators / position coaches. And they had that not successful seasons as the NFL head coach. So, a lot of people look into that and say, well, he wasn't good in Detroit. He wasn't good with the Giants. Oh, boy, we're going to bring them here. What do they think they're going to do here? That kind of, mentality. But, a lot of guys are not just fit for head coaching jobs and maybe just, a position coach or a coordinator. So kind of early to tell. So as Patriot fans, hang in there. You'll see it week one, and they will be on the media as the media will be on Bill Belichick as well.
All right, you see the number there, 774-762-6234. Ryan is on the line. Hello, yes, you were on Santos on Sports.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good morning, Ryan.
Doing well. So you guys hit the nail on the head. It is kind of hard to really gauge what to take away from that preseason game because, it's rather saddening that the Panthers didn't play any of their ones because I wanted to see that just as an overall football fan, I wanted to see that competition between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold continue, even though I think it's a lock that Baker Mayfield's going to get the job anyway. But I guess the couple of silver linings there are, it looked like Patricia was calling the plays for 60 minutes, and we did see the speed of the linebackers. I think Raekwon McMillan did get kind of beat a couple of times, but at the same time, I'm not surprised that he's lost a step because he's just coming off a torn ACL from this past season. Right. But to go on what you were talking about before about whether fans and media are overblowing the whole Patricia thing, and I probably said this before, but here's my thing, right? It's not just the fact that they were failed head coaches in their locations. It's just the fact that they've never called plays before in their careers. And if it was Brady, this is one thing, because this is a guy who was around for 2 decades and he could pretty much run the offense by himself. But my thing is, this is a second-year guy. This is a guy in a critical year of his development, and not only that, and I can't remember if Karen touched on this last week, but seem to be moving into this Shanahan outside zone scheme on offense. That's cool and all. That's my favorite offense of all time. But I would have just preferred to have actually hired someone from that tree who's actually learned from the Shanahan tree in running that offense, especially when you got a young quarterback like Mac.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Ryan. When that new zone blocking scheme and the RPO schemes, start to really matriculate the way they would like it, they are trying to unload it in year 2 for your quarterback, which is very difficult, even though you might still add in things that you've done in the past. But to really put it out there, which I think New England is doing, they're not taking it bit by bit. They're unloading it right away and saying, hey, let's go do this. So when you have guys who have not really done that before, you have to kind of learn now on the fly and on the go, instead of, like you said, getting someone under the Shanahan built offense that you can say, hey, well, this guy's got, a lot of years with it. It's going to be an easy transition to show Mac. So, yeah, I think it's going to be hard. And how much patience do you have as a fan, as a New England fan, to say, can we really do this, or should we go another route? And that's going to be interesting to see come the first couple of weeks.
Let me ask a question to both of you. Maybe I can start with Ryan. Doesn't it seem like the beginning of the season when Mac Jones came in, he comes back and he's been working on the off season and he's physically stronger and he's a little bit more buff and he's working on his arm strength, which people criticized last year. He didn't have enough arm strength, and then he comes back and he's like, what are you guys trying to do to me? Well, what the heck kind of an offense is this? We went 10-7 last year with that offense. I was getting good at that offense. Why are you throwing this crap at me? So he's saying all the right things, but let me start with you, Ryan. Can you see some frustration there on Mac Jones? Certainly a few weeks ago, maybe it's gotten a little bit better, but I don't think he was too happy when they changed everything around.
I could definitely see that. And, just with all the reports like what I was saying before, when they were trying to install that Shanahan scheme, I think it was Greg Bedard who would put that out there. Like the first time they were trying to run that stuff was just an abject disaster. So not only he's probably frustrated in his second year of development, they're just, like you said, they're just completely changing things up with a guy who hasn't called plays before. So I could easily see frustration there.
But Chris, suppose it works in the long run. Right? Now, all of a sudden, Belichick is, the whole "in Bill we trust" thing comes back.
I see it from a different point of view. I see it as Mac being athletic, accurate, intelligent to really handle whatever gets thrown at him. And if this system is to help him, give him some more time, give him some more throws, to use that arm strength that he's built up and to kind of keep him in the pocket where he's not getting attacked and not getting hit, and this is going to help him, why wouldn't you accept it and say, what we did last year and look what was going on here. If we do this is going to help us for the long run. It's going to keep you fresh. It's going to keep you healthy, so forth and so on. So, I'm looking at more hopefully as a positive to him in what they are trying to do. And because I think, Ryan, it starts with Mac Jones when you just talk about this offense, how to protect this young man and make him use his strengths, which is his accuracy and his intelligence on the field.
Absolutely. And you just referred to the protection. I kind of wanted to see how Trent Brown would fare moving to left tackle again, because that's what he's been doing this entire camp. But
and Strange too. Watching Strange out there last night.
Absolutely, yeah. And he's been kind of up and down from what I'm seeing, not just in camp, but in these preseason games. But hopefully he proves to be a quality starting left guard, because we even though we traded down for him, we did draft him in the first round. And I don't know if when Isaiah Wynn's going to come back, he's going to be out for a while. But I really want to see Trent Brown at left tackle again, because I still think he's the better of the two guys.
Yeah, the offensive line, obviously, last night, they were pulling people around because of the fact that you had those injuries. So that was another thing that, it's really hard. Although score that touchdown, the offensive line seemed to be doing their job. I mean, there was one, I think, a sack in that first drive. But looking at the three possessions, right? I know Mac Jones was very critical of himself. And, of course, a competitor is going to be critical of himself. But, I think in one of those, obviously the ball was dropped by Parker. And, I think the commentary was, well, the pass was a little bit behind him. Parker still should have had that one for that first down that first time, okay? The second time, obviously, Jones threw one very, very high to Myers, which was really Jones's fault. But then that third drive, I mean, he put that right on the numbers, right onto Aguilar, really a nice 80-yard drive. And again, it wasn't against the number one defense and all that, but still, it was nice to see him come together. So really, if you count the drop by Parker as something that wasn't really a problem for Mac Jones, I thought Jones did okay, for the first time out there. And he even said, hey, I haven't actually played in the game in a long time. You got to dust the rust off a little bit. So that was probably something to that.
I'd say so. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to show that deep ball is there. We saw it a few times in the preseason last year. But, his guys were constantly dropping the ball. Good thing that Nelson Aguilar finally decided to show up. Hopefully that counts into the regular season. And but like you mentioned before, the Devontae Parker drop, that was concerning, because that was like the one sort of big acquisition that we made. I was actually texting my uncle about that play. And, he's wearing number 1. So I was like, I just got confused about that jersey number and thought that N'Keal Harry was still here.
Hey, Chris, what do you think about Bourne not dressing last night? Bourne might have been my favorite wide receiver last year out of them all. I mean, he had a really good year, and now I don't know, I hear some things that maybe he's getting grumpy because he may have a diminished role. They brought some other players in. Maybe he's thinking he's not going to get as many touches on the ball as he did last year and stuff like that. I don't know. I find that unfortunate, because I liked him. I thought he was very good.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be talked about this week, of where was he and why wasn't he in there, and his relationship right now with Bill, to find out, what's my role on this team. And as Ryan said, Parker getting some time, Aguilar, Myers. But when number 1 dropped the ball, you had a lot of memories of another guy in Chicago right now when he was dropping the balls, wearing that same number. So hopefully it's not the number, Ryan. And if he continues to drop it, I'd change that number as fast as possible, because, a veteran like Parker cannot be dropping balls like that. He's got to make a name for himself. They went out and got him for a reason, for leadership. They still think he's got a lot left and can help this team. And Matt could use him, to really say, hey, here's a guy that I can go to really help me when times are in trouble.
Just going to say, he probably should have stuck with 11 when he first had it.
Hey, Ryan, before we let you go, we didn't talk about the Red Sox, but, I'm watching the Red Sox, and, I'm thinking to myself, maybe they can go on a late run here, but they're going to jump over so many teams. And then that loss to the Pittsburgh Pirates the other night, and last night, another softball game out there, obviously it's not going to happen. But the thing that infuriates me is that basically the ownership forfeited this season. They basically said, well, we're not going to worry about this season. Worry about next season. What do you mean? You're only one game away from the wild card when, the trade deadline came. All they really had to do was get a first baseman earlier in the year. They have to wait till the trade deadline. All you had to do was get and have an outfielder who could actually catch a fly ball. How many games did they lose just by balls dropping in and first baseman not be able to get a scoop. I mean, that first baseman they got now, he's scooping the ball. There was I think there was one who Devers made a fantastic play at third, threw the ball, skipped it right over to first place. The first baseman made the big scoop. I mean, that ball would have been in a dugout about a month ago, right? So they've blown 5, 6, 7 games because they didn't bother to add a little bit to this lineup, and they could easily be right in the thick of it. And basically it's infuriating because they basically took a season and flushed it down the toilet, really for no damn good reason.
Precisely. It was probably even more games than that if you think about it. 160 game season. Like you mentioned, it took till the trade deadline for Boone to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should go get a first baseman. And again, I didn't expect Eric Hosmer to be hitting the ball as well as he has, but I'm not saying he's like Aaron Judge or anything, but he's sprinkling the ball. He's been playing pretty well. Tommy Pham has been doing a lot better than I expected. He's our lead off hitter right now. The way that those guys have been, like not just the blown games, it also makes me look at it and say, okay, exactly why did we decide to trade Christian Vasquez? Couldn't we have held on to him to try, make a run here? Totally agree. Completely blew the season because, they were so, I don't know, like, oh, we can work with Bobby Dahlbeck and freaking Franchi Cordero at first base. We can have Jackie Bradley Jr. back there, even though we can't hit. It's absolutely blown season. It was absolutely, and also, we can keep, Jaron Duran back at center field while Kike Hernandez is gone.
Hey, you know what, real quick before Chris responds, when our team is looking up at the Baltimore Orioles, that this is getting freaking ugly.
15 runs last night. Congrats, man.
That's Chris Santos, Baltimore Orioles.
I appreciate that, Ryan. Hopefully it continues in the next 2 games over this weekend. So we appreciate your insight with the Red Sox and obviously the Patriots. And, football's right around the corner. I'm sure you're looking forward to it as much as we are.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it as always.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. All right. So there's the number right there on the screen, 774-762-6234. I'm trying to get a chuckle out of Chris over here because, hey, Baltimore's having a good year. They have a shot to sneak into the playoffs. And if the Red Sox don't get in, hey, Baltimore is really a classic franchise. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be against seeing them in there. Young team, kind of an exciting team, a team that nobody really expected. So, hey, to see him sneak in there, I think that would be pretty cool.
Well, a lot going on right now. Obviously, the Yankees have been slumping 2-8 in their last 10, and they've had a tough month. A lot of things not going their way. So if you're in the East and you want to make moves, it's time to do that now and go after it. And for the Red Sox, let's talk about what's left in August. 2 more, obviously, with Baltimore. Then they got 3 with Toronto, 3 with Tampa Bay, and 3 with Minnesota to end the month. All wild card playoff teams right there. So you want to make a move, you got to come out and get on a run in 10 games, maybe 9-1, 8-2. But right there, you're looking at 8 games that you can really turn it around. Then you go to September. They have 3 with Tampa, 7 with Baltimore, 6 with the Yankees, and end the last game of the season with Toronto, a 1 game. So there are a lot. Of course, there's a lot of teams in between there. They play Cincinnati, the Cubs. They got a couple of other games that they have too. So there is some time left, Paul, to make some kind of big jump. Can they do it? With the club that they have on, they need Xander to get hot. He's been slumping. Got thrown out last night. Cora joined them after that. But when you're giving up 15 runs to the Baltimore Orioles, you have some issues right now. And obviously it starts with your starting pitching. So they need to get that going. Ryan alluded to it. Hosmer's done a nice job. They've picked him up, obviously, defensively in the first base. And he's going to add some pop with that bat when he's in there in the offense. Hernandez back, still don't have Story back. Remember that. So they've missed him. Need to get him healthy and playing for the rest of the time. So have to find out when he's coming back. Another big acquisition that they could really use right now to the end of the season to get him going. So a lot going on with Boston, but I'm not shutting them down yet. Could they have done it earlier, Paul, as you said? Absolutely. Bloom could have made some different choices a little bit ahead of time. They didn't. He wanted to wait and see what, his young guys in his farm system were done first. I just don't think it worked out for him the way he wanted it. And then that's where he go to the trade line and get some of these other guys.
Yeah, maybe he just thought that these younger guys were more ready than they really were, and that's what really killed it. Now over here,
and that's and teams do that, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, remember when Bogaerts came up? I think in 2013, he played great. He went right in there. I think one time, trying to remember some other examples. Maybe Pedroia as a rookie went in there, was great right away. So I mean, sometimes they're ready. I mean, hey, people forget Pedroia came up and he batted 200 for about 3 months, and people were thinking, hey, maybe this guy isn't ready. And they asked Pedroia, real competitor, real smart guy. He says, hey, I've been in slumps before. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. You're a rookie in the major leagues. You're not worried about it. And then the next thing you know, he was a spunky, hardworking guy. He had so much confidence. He ended up helping the Red Sox right away. I think it was in 2007. So it does happen. By the way, there was a comment here. I forgot to mention they traded Trey Mancini and are still doing well. What was Chris's reaction to that trade? Yes.
Yeah. I was a big Trey Mancini fan. It was tough to see him go. Again, it becomes a money issue. It comes a lot of things. I don't have all the details and why they go and do it, but I was a fan. I know he had some off-field issues with his health. He came out of that. He came back. He was comeback player of the year. He's done a lot of great things for Baltimore. It was really hard to see him go. But at the same time, they've moved on and they're still winning even without him. But it was nice to see him right in the thick of it. And he's doing well with the Astros. So that's nice to see too.
All right. And a shout out here to Mikey Kahn. Mikey Kahn looking in this morning. Very
morning,
nice
Michael.
comment. Nice show as usual, sharing this. And Chops Turner typing in the 49ers are the best. So Chops is always rooting for the 49ers. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, an interesting crossroads over there for the 49ers as well. So we'll see how things pan out. But a lot of great stuff happening. Give us a shout here at 774-762-6234 and chime in and give us your opinion on the Patriots and the Red Sox we're focusing in on today. Yeah. And we'll see what happens down the stretch. But, Chris, you're talking about you're not willing to write the Red Sox off yet. I mean, if they were 5 games behind and they had like one team, but to have to hop over, so you're scoreboard watching, right? So, sometimes you might be like, we got to win and that team's got to lose. No, we got to win and that team, I'll have to lose. I mean, to me, it's just like that. The Red Sox would have to win like 10 in a row or go like 12-2 or go on this super, super hot streak, which is not impossible. But, and then a bunch of other teams. You get the White Sox, you got the Mariners, you got Toronto, you got, obviously Baltimore. Some of these teams, really, most of them would have to falter. So that's
first it's 3 teams in your division, Paul.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Baltimore, Tampa, and Toronto. So worry about that first. Worry about your division and how to beat those teams that you have. Now, you can't really worry about Seattle. You can't worry about Minnesota and maybe the White Sox because they're going to battle one another. So when they fight each other in their division, some good things can happen. Right now, your goal is to worry about Tampa, Toronto, and Baltimore, which you have a lot of games with, and you have it coming up this week into next week and finish August. So if they can end August strong and they go 3-6, then they got 11 games to end this month, 2 with Baltimore, 3 with Toronto, 3 with Tampa, and 3 with Minnesota, all wild card contenders right in front of them. See if they can get that run. Then we'll talk the beginning of September and say, okay, Paul, this is what they did in those 11 games and look where they are now. Or, boy, but they're out of it. They don't have a chance and they're going down even more. So I think these next 2 weeks to end August is very, very huge for the Boston Red Sox.
I was looking at the Red Sox schedule and September 27th and September 28th, the last 2 games of the regular season, the Red Sox are hosting the Baltimore Orioles, So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, man, wouldn't that be great if, right now the tickets are really cheap because nobody's expecting those games to mean anything. But can you imagine if the Red Sox did get on some kind of a run? I think it is too late myself. But let's say, they hadn't blown a lot of these other games, by dropping fly balls and everything else. and it came down to, you had to win that game, or the Orioles have to win that game to get in, or something like that. Wow, that's really entertaining stuff. And it's too bad because, unless the Red Sox, like you say, just stop mowing teams down. And hey, look, we can hope as Red Sox fans, which I know you're not, that they're going to mow all these teams down. But what's the track record? Their record is terrible in the American League East, right? So how are they going to beat all these teams when they haven't done it all year? Especially with, they've gotten some players back, but I don't know. I wish I could say I could see it, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, and even Devers been a little banged up. You can see him running out there with a little bit of a limp now and then. So Bogarts, Devers, again, if you had Story there, that's 3. Arroyo's look good. Verdugo's got the bat moving right now. Need JD to get popping with him, with Hosmer. And so Pham came out of the game last night with some back stiffness. So there's another one too. You got to be healthy, and things have to go and come around with staying healthy and moving at the right time. But for me, I still think it's their defense and pitching. Those are the 2 things for me that make good ball clubs, because I think everybody can hit the ball, but for them, I think they have to find a way to get that pitching staff to step up and say, hey, now Bonds, I guess, has really improved from what he has been doing as of late. He's come around, so that's nice in the back end to kind of rely on him. It's got to get those starters to get you to go deep, and you can't give up 15 runs, that's for sure.
I was got a kick out of Buck Sherwalder. We got to see him a lot in the American League East. I was over there in the National League. He's doing pretty well over there. What do you think when you see Buck Sherwalder having so much success over there? Did you always like him?
The fighting Showalters.
I like him.
Yeah, that's what they called it. And a lot of these veteran guys, they have so much to offer these young kids. It's a matter if they can have the respect, and work with all these kind of attitudes, to work with the prima donnas, to work with the greats, to work with the lesser guys. There's a lot going on, when you have a full team and a lot on your plate. And some of these guys can be too old for it. We watched Girardi just get fired by the Phillies. He's now going to take some analyst job with the Cubs. So, he had some great runs, and now he's out. You look at a guy like Tony La Russa, who's been there forever, now still with the White Sox, and how has he been getting along with them? He's had his ups and downs in the season, but yet they're still good contenders. So a lot going on to say for those guys. It's nice to see some of them, but Buck Showalter, go get him.
Hey, I got a comment here from Jason Mello, and in response to the comment by Chops Turner saying that the 49ers are the best, he says, come on, Chops. Are you kidding me now? Come on. That's going to be an interesting year for them. But, switching back to the football for a moment, and we'll entertain whatever you want to talk about this morning. 774-762-6234. Jump on board. We'd love to hear from you this morning. Patriots, this is such an interesting season. This might be one of the most interesting seasons that they've had in a long time, because unlike the Brady years where, the AFC, quite honestly, wasn't that great. You had the greatest quarterback in the AFC East, which stunk. You kind of knew half the games they were going to win before they even went out on the field, right? But this right here, this is what's in front of us, bringing in Patricia and Judge, the new system, installing the new offense, trying to get the defense a little bit more speedy, maybe cleaning up some of those dumb, illegal procedure penalties and false starts and things like that, right? That's something they really need to clean up from last year, which is really something that you don't expect from a Bill Belichick coach team. But this team can go anywhere from 5 wins to 10 or 11 wins easily. You could easily see it. You could easily see the whole thing go down the tubes, or you could easily see it go the other way or somewhere in between. So what a fascinating, season to watch all this come together. The offense, the defense, the new system, the speedy defense, all that stuff, and the new offensive coordinator and all that. Wow, it's almost like anything can happen, right? You say that in sports, but this is one season where it's just so fascinating seeing how and watching how this is all going to come together.
It is, and I would be a lot more worried if the Patriots were coming off a 4-14 season, 4-13. But when you're coming off a 10-7 season and still made the playoffs, my aspirations are a lot higher, Paul. I still think there's a lot of good things, and tweak, what we did not like. and we've already discussed this, and a lot of the things that we saw, get into good quarterbacks. So you rush speedier linebackers, more playmakers in that offense, getting something out of Hunter, Henry, and Smith, things like that. So I'm a little more optimistic to say that what I saw last year at 10-7 and still make the playoffs, if we can tweak some of these things and move it in the right direction, I think we can be even better. I understand that, you're not blowing up everything, but at the same time, you have to make sure you keep intact, the New England style of play that has got you and your organization where it is today. And I think Bill will continue to do that, and I think the Patriots will be just fine.
Shout out to Sandra Santos, who has the right last name for the show. Thank you for looking at this morning and listening to us talk sports. And, Chris has always been someone, because he's not a Patriots fan, you can kind of look at this a little bit more objective. We, the Patriots fans, we're so, tied into our team and, so emotionally attached to our team that, we tend to start from the position of the fellowship of the miserable and work our way back. But yeah, when you think last year, right, that team went 10-7, right, and made the playoffs and everything. And then you look back at that season and you're like, gee, that team wasn't really that great a team. You know what I mean? Like, you had a first-year quarterback trying to learn. You had a lot of new moving parts in there.
Correct.
And they had to scratch and claw to get to that 10-7. You think, gee, maybe this team is better than last year. You would hope it is. You would hope that they would improve from last year. They could take what happened last year and improve on it. I mean, their schedule is tough. I mean, I don't know if there's any tougher than last year. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Obviously, you get the AFC, which just seems stronger all the time with all these quarterbacks. But again, maybe we are being a little bit too pessimistic. Do you think the Patriots fans are being a little bit too pessimistic? You seem to be a little bit more optimistic than we are.
Well, think about what the Patriots went do, Paul. They just didn't sit back and say, okay, we were 10-7, we'll be fine, and just move on to year two. They went out and addressed the issues of last year and said, okay, we need to do this. And they went out and got it. Try to get some playmakers like Parker, Ty Montgomery, and some others. Try to shore up the offensive line. Try to get more. So they drafted and they went there. Try to get speed in the linebackers. They went out and tried to do that. So, they're not just sitting back and say, we're New England and everyone's scared of us. They realized what was wrong last year, and they're trying to, stiffen up that defense, make it better, shore up that offense to say, hey, Mac, year number 2, we're going to let him go a little bit more this year, get it down the field, going to give him some more playmakers to work with. So I think they did it right. In any organization, I think that's how you have to do it. You have to go by what you saw the year before, how far you went, and what we need to address in the offseason and make it better. And I think that's what they've done. So I think they're going to be fine. And I'm not a huge fan of theirs, but I see them doing what they're supposed to do to continue to be a successful organization, which is what they are.
Well, we hope you're right. We hope you're right, and they can put together a competitive season. That over-under, I think, is 8.5 wins. And I think even Karen last week, we had a nice show last week with Karen of the Boston Herald. You can go back and check it out if you have a chance.
Yep.
Really, really enjoyable. She was just terrific. What a bundle of knowledge, and really great to hear all of her commentary about the New England Patriots this year. But she was somewhere around the 8-win. I mean, anybody can predict anything because obviously the difference between 8 wins and 10 wins is like this, one catch or one drop ball or something like that. But, hey, again, we'll have to see. I mean, I think 10 wins last year and then followed up by a 7 or 8 win season would feel like such a step backwards after they took that jump from the Cam Newton era.
Yes, because what they did last year and now what they've added on to improve it. And if they go below 8, it will not be a successful season, obviously, by that record. And a lot of people will not be happy and satisfied. And I'm sure Bill will be the first one to say, this is not the way we want it to go. So they're thinking at 10-7, we're going to improve our spots that we need improvement, and we're going to get better than that. That's what he's thinking. That's what he went out and do. Now, can they execute and do it with their new coaching, with their new schemes, with their new speed, all that put together? Can they do it is obviously the key. But to him, he's done everything he thinks possible to get them back to the elite. Can they? That's why they play the game, Paul.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Hello, you are next on Santos on Sports.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hey, one of the things that Bill has thought about for years, and he's been trying to do it, and it's real clear to me this year, is he's trying to develop the Mike Shanahan type offense.
Yep.
Some people who were even with Mike Shanahan, who went on to move, coach other places, took them 3 to 5 years. Bill's too old, spread too thin, and he doesn't have enough coaching staff that even understand the philosophies. I've rethought everything out. I don't think they're going to hit 8 wins this year because there's too much turmoil, and the offense is doing what the defense did last year. Who do we listen to? Last year it was, do we listen to Mayo? Do we listen to Steve? And if there was 2 series of downs or those problems, Bill stepped back in. The same thing's going to happen this year with the offense, and it's going to hurt Mac, and it's going to hurt the team as a whole.
Interesting thoughts, interesting opinion. I can agree that can happen. There's no doubt about it. It's how they adjust with this coaching staff, how they adjust to this new scheme blocking and RPO schemes and zone blocking and everything that we talked about in the Shanahan West Coast offense and everything else. So I think you're right to say this is pretty much a big opportunity for them to show and prove everybody wrong and say, yeah, even though we've never done this, we can do it. We're good coaches. Or it can blow up right in their face as you're thinking and be below 8, and this is not going to work out. It's a great opinion. I can see it happening. But I think Bill is smart enough to figure things out, work it out with his coaching staff, and try to find a way to improve from last year and still be up there. For him to really fold and really go down, I'd have to see a lot more because I think they have the personnel to try to make it happen. And I mean player personnel than I do maybe coaching.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But the fact that this far along, he's still in the process of figuring out who's going to be making the calls.
Yeah.
That gives no stability to the players, no confidence.
Yeah, I think they'll have that solved by week 1, and they will continue to.
That should have already been solved.
Well, no, it's not solved yet because as Karen said last week, they're still on the contract with some other teams, and I think Bill's just sitting back saying, this is the way I like to do it, and I'll do it when I'm ready to do it because that's Bill. That's what Bill does. He likes to keep everybody guessing and everybody thinking. That he has no idea what he's doing. And then he comes back and he does something else. So I agree with you. There are going to be some struggles, but in the long run, I think they will be fine, this season. But
so you think, Caller,
it could blow up.
Yeah.
So, Caller, you think it's really going to be a disaster and they're only going to win like 5 or 6 games, something like that?
I think that 7, 8 tops.
All right. Well, all right. I mean, that would be a little disappointing given the fact
I've already went and put money on the 8.5 line in Vegas.
Really?
You're going under 8.5.
You're going under.
8.5 is the line. Yep.
You're doing the under and the over under.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this:
going under.
putting aside the whole, who's calling the play thing, right? Do you think that the Patriots, by trying to install this Shanahan offense, that it's going to take too long? In other words, you need to get a year or 2 under your belt before you can really fine tune it. In other words, you think it's
absolutely, and it's a very brain-wise technical offense for the linemen and for the players because of the adjustments that you're going to make, like on that split second. It's not like what you call a set type play with maybe an option if things get tight. You got that split second for adjustment.
Chris, do you think
that's where Shanahan and his best coaches that got that have done well because they have that ability and they got the players who could handle that.
Do you think, Chris, that it can be installed in 1 year and still be successful?
No.
That's very difficult unless, Paul, you've gone out and you got free agents and you drafted kids who you think can run these schemes in zone blocking and figure it out on the fly and get better as the season goes on. Very difficult, as the caller is saying. I have to agree with that. Tough. So it's going to be difficult for them. But Belichick finds a way to get things done. So it will be quite interesting once this offense gets on the field in a real game, how they look in week 1, which is on the road at Miami, if I believe.
Well, we're spoiled Patriots fans, so it's hard for us to accept that we have to sit through another.
Keyword right there.
Keyword right
yeah.
Chris always reminds me of this, but
I remind Paul that all the time.
Yeah,
way too long.
But
the expectations.
But
the bar is so high, we don't even leave the ground.
Right, but he's changing the offense, and that may be a good thing in the long run. But it is hard, like we're just criticizing the Red Sox for basically skipping over this year and working towards next year. I wouldn't want the Patriots to go through a growing pain year. They have a lot of good athletes there, and they've added some pieces, and they've done some things. So to have to go through a growing pains year, looking ahead to next year, now we want this team to do something,
Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Hey,
see you Monday, Paul.
All right, thanks very much.
Hey,
all right.
Thanks a lot.
All right, 774-762-6234. Get some good calls coming in and some great takes. So you got a few minutes left, about 10 minutes, if you'd like to jump in on any of this. Yeah, I mean that.
Well, listen, Paul. He's right on it. Where he's saying, is this coaching staff able to install this new season, and do I have the players that can do this? And I think that's the whole key. Do I have the players that if I'm changing my entire offense now? I don't know all the ins and outs of what Bill's doing and really throwing everything away and saying I'm going with this whole new scheme. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. I'm sure they're keeping some things. They're getting rid of some stuff, adding some new things. So how they do it, but I think the caller is right into the point of how can Bill and my staff, with the players that I've brought in or I've maintained, and really show that we can handle this new system offensively and defensively.
And I think the other thing he's pointing out is not only are you implementing a new system that has a lot of complexities to it, you're doing it at the same time that you're doing this tryout for the offensive coordinator. So now you've complicated it even more.
Okay. That can make that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, you brought 2 coaches who hasn't run that system before. So what do they know? That kind of thing. So whether Bill's relying on himself or with the help of those guys to say, okay, this is what I've learned as head coaches. This is what I've done, and try to simplify it and make it easier. Let's hope for their sake they can, and that helps out Mac in that offense.
Well, Ryan made a good point in the first caller that we had earlier in the hour that, if you were going to install this offense, why not get an offensive coordinator who's run that offense before and put them in there rather than somebody who not only haven't they been an offensive coordinator on this offense, they haven't been an offensive coordinator on any offense.
Mm-hmm. No, agree. And I said to Ryan that, that's something that I'm kind of surprised about. And that's why I thought they were going to wait a little bit longer and then say, this is the guy we went get. And this is why we went go get him. And they didn't do that. So I was a little surprised at first, but I'm not surprised at the guys that came back, which are Bill guys. And so, he says that I can work with these 2. I got a great repertoire with them, and we're going to figure this out. And I think that's why he went do it.
Those first 4 games of the Patriots have to play. I mean, they got Green Bay. They got, obviously the opening game against Miami. Before we even get past one game at a time, right? So not only are they playing Miami, they're playing Miami in Miami. I mean, even Tom Brady's teams had trouble winning down there for whatever reason. And last year, Patriots are 0-2 against Miami, right? They still won 10 games. If they could have at least beat them once, they could have had 11 games. You know what I mean? Right. So I got to tell you, that first game of the season at Miami against a team in your division who you went 0-2 against last year with your new offense and your new offensive coordinator and stuff like that, I got to tell you, I don't want to put the whole season on one game. Of course, you're not going to do that. It's only one game. But how they do in that game, that first game, I think that's important, to get off to a good start. Imagine if they go down there and beat Miami. What a great lift that would be for the team. I mean, I think that first game is probably more important than first games are on a normal season.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be an eye-opener to a lot of fans to really see what this team will offer this year. Now, Bill didn't start off great last year, and they still went through that nice stretch, and then they finished 10-7. So I'm not writing them off if they lose that game to Miami, but I think it's the eye-opener, Paul, of what they look different than last year on both sides of the ball. And obviously speed will be the one key on the defensive side that you will look for. And then the play calling and execution of what we're going to see in the zone block and RPO schemes and how Mac handles everything on the offense. So I think it's an eye-opener more than anything else.
Yeah, and I'm not even thinking whether they necessarily win the game or not.
Right.
If they lose the game, 28-25 on a last second field goal or something like that, but you see a lot of good things from the defense, the speed, you see a lot of good things from the offense, you see maybe less penalties and false starts and stuff like that, some good special teams play. Okay, that's one thing. But if they go in there and get blown out or something and the offense is all over the place and nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing and it's a real disaster, then it's like, oh God, like you're not going to last. You'll be 0-4 if you get off to a start like that. So I think how they play that game, win or lose, how things come together, the schemes, the blocking, all the things that you discussed. I think that's going to be really to see right off the bat. That's only like about a month from now, right?
Yep.
So
definitely so.
It's going to be so
and
fast.
I'm looking at the impact players. The impact players, obviously your offensive line, and make sure you hold up. But I'm looking for both tight ends, Smith and Henry, to see what they can offer because I didn't think it was enough last year. And then I'm looking to see Parker, Aguilar, Bourne, if he's playing, and Myers, those four guys right there. And because I think that their running game is okay. I think they got some good runners, guys coming out of the backfield. A lot happened with Harrison, Stevenson, Montgomery. I think those guys will be fine. But I want to see the offensive line and then obviously the playmakers on the outside and from the tight ends. Very important. And then, Paul, obviously, how does guys like Judon, Barmore get to quarterbacks, speed of the linebackers, and then these guys, covering out wide with Duggar, Phillips, McCourty, Jones, those guys there to see how they handle the secondary. So a lot of eye-opening in week one to really show what the Patriots have and how they improved from last year, if they have it all.
Well, I really enjoy watching those post-game press conferences. And even though the players are very trained not to really say too much, you know what I mean? You really have to listen to what they say. But every once in a while, something kind of squeaks out. And I thought it was interesting that Judon had said something about how the defense was going to be more aggressive. He used the word aggressive, right? So I'm thinking, absolutely, because the down lineman, you talk about him and Barmore, and I don't know what happened. We're speculating that maybe Judon got hurt because he was a totally different player in the second half. But if he can bring you what he brought in the first half and you can get a pass rush and then you get the speed of the linebackers and you get some decent play on the corners, hey, maybe they can get in there and give Buffalo a run for into some of these games. You know what I mean? Because, hey, that last game, in the playoffs and even the regular season game, not forcing a punt, that really killed them. So, I mean, if you can just put some pressure on them and get the ball to be turned over on downs a few times or at least force some punts, those games would be totally different because offensively, they still put up 25 points against Buffalo. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that it's interesting to see the aggressiveness of the defense, the speed of the linebackers, the pass rush by the players that we just talked about. All that is really going to be fascinating to see on the other side of the ball as well.
Yeah, and maybe some interchangeable parts with some depth, Paul. And that way you don't have to use Judon every single play. And you can rest them, an occasion, a play here and there and get some other guys involved. So, maybe that can help as well and get some interchangeable parts in and out, and really have a lot going on. So you're not worn down and tired down during the game too. So I'll be looking forward to seeing in week one that eye opener of what the Patriots come out with and bring to the table on both sides of the ball.
By the way, if that last game against the Baltimore Orioles is for the Red Sox to make the playoffs, I will buy 2 tickets for you and I to go up there and see that game. All right.
You know what? It's a great scene. Baltimore is a great ballpark. Camden Yards is a lot of fun. I've been there quite a few times. If you ever get a chance to go out there, it's a great one. And obviously, when the Red Sox are in town, it's even more exciting. It was nice to see the stands really full last night. That was a lot of fun as well. They got 2 more games, obviously, today and tomorrow, and then the Sox have a tough August with Tampa and Toronto and Minnesota as well. So a lot going for them these next 2 weeks to end August. So hopefully, Paul, the next time we talk, we'll know a lot more situation how the Red Sox. But I think, as you said, in the next 10 games, they got to do better than 5-5. They got to be 8-2, 9-1. They got to stop putting some pressure on some teams.
All right, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
We really appreciate your support. Attorney John Seed, many remember him, of course, quarterbacking that New Bedford High football team and also winning a state championship with the New Bedford baseball team, playing at Fenway Park and bouncing one off the Green Monster. John Seed, 156 8th Street, New Bedford. You can check him out at johnseedlaw.com. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis, pickleball, and more. Citywide Glass, 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, River, and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. And by the way, you've got a tennis event coming up, Chris. Look at this right here. I mean, this guy, Chris Santos, is a winner.
No. This is back in this is back in 18 in the we went to the Nationals out in Vegas, and we qualified again this year. We're going to represent New England. This year we'll be out in Oklahoma City in October. So to my over 40 team, great job. We came in as a wild card, and we came out representing New England and going to the Nationals in October. So it was a great weekend last week. Everybody stepped up their game. We really put it on to them. So that was really nice to see. And looking forward to it. Just another event to go to. So back to the Nationals with the Lakeville Athletic Club. Good job, guys.
Yeah, congratulations. Now, how many players are on your team?
We probably have about a total of 13. We play 1 singles match and 3 doubles matches. So that's 7 guys that are playing. And then obviously we got our captain who rotates us around, figure out what's our best matchup against the other teams. And we go out and play. So hopefully all 13 can make it. If not, we go with 10 or 11, whatever we can do. But make sure we have 7, that's for sure. So we're all playing.
Well, I think this should be mentioned because, if you're playing in an over 40 league and you already won, that's one thing. You're just over the line. You're still really playing like a 35-year-old, but you're 40, 41, just over the line. Well, Chris Santos is significantly over the line. So, no, but this is a compliment because you're going to be playing against 41-year-olds and aren't you like around the big 5-0, something like that?
No, I'm a little bit more older than the big 5-0, almost close to the big 5-5.
No, so you're playing in over, you could be playing in over 50 league if there is a such thing, but no, you're playing down. You're playing down with these 41 and 42-year-old kids. You know what I mean? So that's actually a compliment.
That's true. We played over the weekend, and yes, there were some youngsters out on that court in their 40s and 41s, and we're a little bit more of the veteran club. Let's put it that way. So even going to the Nationals, I think we're going to be one more of the average older teams out there in the 28 regions that show up. So it's nice to represent New England. Don't have our bracket yet, but when you play teams like Pacific Northwest and Mid-Atlantic and the Florida teams, the Texas teams, the California teams, the Caribbean teams, it's a lot of fun, Paul, and it's great to represent New England and go out there and try our best.
Well, congratulations again for qualifying. Congratulations for representing the Lakeville Athletic Club, which is one of our sponsors. So it's really nice to see that and all your teammates and so forth. So all the best in the fall. I know it's something fun to look forward to too.
I am. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And all the teams that made it from Lakeville, not just us. There's a lot of other ones. Good luck to you guys as well. I know there's a lot more going to Nationals all around the country. So go get them. Then that's a good job to the Lakeville Athletic Club.
And thanks a lot to you in our viewing audience for supporting our show, calling and commenting. We appreciate it. Keep watching those games and a lot going on here in New England sports as always. For Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Hey, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again real soon here on Santos.